The Department of Homeland Security has bumped up the number now, announcing the arrest of 17 illegal aliens from Iran, all within this week. Officials are saying an Iranian national arrested in Texas yesterday had a long rap sheet with convictions like drug trafficking, conspiracy, intimidation, or force against a witness. Other Iranian aliens arrested on Monday had previous convictions such as assault with a deadly weapon, drug trafficking, sex offenses. The White House is reiterating that more than 1,500 Iranian nationals were released into the country during the Biden administration. Former DHS Secretary Jay Johnson says it's become a pressing security concern.
The presence in this country of undocumented migrants or Iranian nationals who have links to Hezbollah, IRGC, is, in my judgment, a domestic law enforcement concern of the highest magnitude. And sleepers don't necessarily follow the direction from their sponsors. Somebody who's here in the United States who has links to the IRGC, to Hezbollah, may decide to take matters into their own hands.
So just to clarify, 1,504 Iranians came across our border, and more than half of them were released into the country. We have no idea who they are, where they are. President Trump says radicalization has become widespread in Iran, and it's not uncommon to see protests with burning American flags and Death to America chants. But CNN's Erin Burnett claims there's an element of friendliness despite them.
I remember, Dan, at one point being in Tehran years ago, and they're chanting death to America all around me, even as I say, oh, I'm an American reporting for CNN, and they were happy to speak to me. So that those two sort of jarring realities of the chant and yet the friendliness have existed together.
Noah, do you think she knew what she was comparing there?
No, she did not. So again, another one of the things to understand is who is the Islamic Republic of Iran? Who is that regime? And that regime, which I will separate from the Iranian people, from the Persian people, the Islamic Republic of Iran is occupying Iran. The Islamic Republic of Iran's entire organizing principle is to spread out Shia Islamist revolution around the world, across the Muslim world and then across the entire world. That is their reason of being. So to think that they're not coming after the United States or Israel is absolutely ridiculous. When they say death to Israel, death to America, that's little Satan and big Satan. And that is what they intend to do in order for their version of the end of days, which I'm not going to get into right now. That is what they want to do, and we need to be very concerned about this. There is no doubt that there are sleeper cells, not just in America, but also in Europe and across the world. We've seen this throughout the years and decades. There's no doubt that they're doing this, trying to do this, and we have to be very vigilant and very careful that it doesn't happen again. But to say the death to America is a cute phrase is absolutely misguided and completely dangerous.
You know what we don't talk about, Emily? How Iran treats its women. I mean, this is a global cause right now. They want us to be those women and never become a situation where they're like us with freedom. So I don't know how the left gets away with never mentioning that when they purport to be the party of women.
Right, it's fascinating, and I think and it underscores so many Iranians that are deeply resistant to the Islamic Republic, and yet, unlike here, cannot voice their opinion and do hold out hope for a potential regime change. Now, I know that our president has said that's not quite on the table right now, and obviously our role is containment and by no means further intervention. But the reality remains that an entire population of people are under a horrific thumb. And for it to be whitewashed by the left, I have to say this, that of the hundreds of individuals that were encountered at the southern border that were known or suspected terrorists under the prior administration, we don't know where many of them are.
That's
because we know of those encounters, for example, were all released, were some released? And the fact that the numbers are a little bit murky, at least to us, is so frightening because it's what we don't know, I think, that poses the most problems at this moment. Now, obviously, at this point, DHS has a precautionary stance with those Iranians arrested. They're pursuing removal proceedings, right? Not, obviously, as you said, many are convicted of and charged with horrific crimes, but that's not quite being adjudicated right now. So the good news is I consider this more of like a house cleaning situation. But to your point, the threat is ever apparent. But finally, under this administration, we can sleep a little easier at night.
Last hour, Senator Ted Cruz of Texas joined me on the Faulkner Focus and spoke about the threat from Iran.
In my view, the single most acute national security threat America faced is the threat of a nuclear Iran. I think China is the greatest long-term geopolitical threat, but in terms of an acute threat, the Ayatollah, when he chants death to America, I believe him. When he calls America the great Satan, I believe him. And one of the things really important for folks at home to understand, this attack was about protecting America.
What's your thought?
Well, I don't sleep well at night because it's not just the Ayatollah that is saying this, it's people in the middle of the street. I mean, they've been calling for death to America. I've been seeing Hamas flags. I've seen Hezbollah, flags of the Houthis as well. And people continue to say, oh, let's just be loving, let's be loving. But the words have meaning. There was report and intel assessments that said at the Columbia protests that they were coordinating with Hamas. We've heard that from some of the hostages. And it can't just be a law enforcement issue, because we've seen what happens when the federal agents start showing up to people's doorstep to remove national security threats. The protesters surround them.
Right.
And the governors don't back them up. When cops call for backup, federal agents, it took 30 minutes for the LAPD to come respond. When a cop gets on his radio and says, officer assist, we all know the rules. All lights and sirens show up.
Absolutely.
But in liberal cities, they say, oh, that's not the loving way. Their ignorance, their big hearts are going to get more Americans killed. I just hope that we do the right thing.
Molly.
Noah raised a great point about this being a global threat and the Intifada being a global threat. Just in May, the authorities in London arrested a number of Iranian men, believing that they were involved in a plot somewhere at an undisclosed location in London. So it's not just here in America where we're concerned about the sleeper cells. Jay Johnson, they're talking this morning about how they don't need someone to give them the go-ahead, that they're ready and willing and perhaps have this ideology already within them to act by themselves. And I think you had a great point about the women in Iran. I've been thinking a lot about them and how they rose up in 1979 in the immediate days after everything that took over. If you go back and look at those pictures from International Women's Day and the immediate aftermath, they look like women on any street in America. And so that heart is still there. And so we have to wonder, and hope that they get their lives back and their ability to live freely. And we think about that, too, as well.
Yeah. One last
thought. This is not just a threat that's across the pond. This week on Sunday, I went to the demonstration called Hands Off Iran right here on Columbus Circle. People were waving the flags of martyrdom all over. I was having a conversation with this. Explain to me about the flag. And he's like, if you're humiliated, you need to kill yourself. It's right here. It's right here in America.
It's evil.
Yeah,
it's a spiritual warfare.
It really is.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.